And a man has been arrested in New York in connection with the death of a woman who was set on fire on a subway train in Brooklyn. Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch described Sunday's incident as one of the most depraved crimes one person could possibly commit against another human being. She said the woman was on a stationary F train when she was approached by a man who used a lighter to ignite her clothing, which became fully engulfed in a matter of seconds. Although officers extinguished the flames, the victim died at the scene. Police are still working to establish a possible motive for the attack. No charges have been filed as yet. Well, and for more insight into these developments I just reeled out, here is U.S. Republican strategist Greg Swenson joining us live from the UK. Greg, glad to have you join us from where you are. Let's start with the Joe Biden's commuting to life in prison, 37 of the 40 on death row, on the backdrop of Trump saying he has to powerfully restore death sentences. What's your sense?
Yeah, if anything, it's just really cynical of President Biden to do this because he's only commuted 37, not all 40. And at the same time, they're filing federal capital charges against the Pennsylvania man who killed the insurance executive a few weeks ago. So it's totally inconsistent. And they're keeping 3 of these inmates on death row because there were prosecutions that occurred during the Obama and Biden administrations. And, forget the argument whether they deserve it or not. That's not the point. The point is this is a really cynical and they're picking and choosing who is executed and who is not. And remember, this is law. The Congress voted for this law. Congress voted for federal executions to occur. You might not like them, but if you don't, you should just have Congress change the law. But instead, Biden is violating the law by doing this. And it's, again, really cynical.
When you say it's cynical, Biden has maintained that this has been his fight all the way to stop violence and reduce stuff like this, except in extreme cases, which is the reason why 3 are left out. So when you say it's cynical, one wonders what you mean by being cynical.
Well, I think because, again, they're picking and choosing. So it's hard to really draw a conclusion that the Pennsylvania man was a terrorist. He did hunt down someone and kill them. How they link that to terrorism, I don't know. But again, it's by picking and choosing. And if you don't like the death penalty, which many Americans don't, then the best way to address that is to have the law changed, go to Congress, who constitutionally is required to create law. And so but just because Biden's been very honest about that, he is against the death penalty. There's no shame in that, but it shouldn't be up to him to determine what these, not only Congress has determined, but the judges, the juries that went through this painstaking analysis and painstaking process of going through these trials. And it's probably not pleasant, but he's just reversed all of that effort. And so again, if one is not a fan of the death penalty or capital punishment, well, then that's why we have Congress. Go to Congress and make the argument and change the law.
All right, great. Let's move away from the death penalty, Biden, and then Trump saying he will restore powerfully death sentences. Let's talk about Trump's rally, where in some circles, the talk is he tries to drop these things in his rallies. You can differentiate whether they are policies or just testing the waters, saying he will take over Panama Canal. The president, Molino, has already replied him, saying what he's saying doesn't hold water.
Yeah, it's a tough one because there hasn't been any discussion, at least to my knowledge, on how the U.S. would do that, and whether it's just a threat of tariffs, which seems to work in many cases, to get the Panamanians to cooperate. And if President Trump's view is that they're charging too much, there's also the fact that three of the ports, not bases, but three of the ports in the Panama Canal are owned by the Chinese. So there is a bit of that sort of historical Monroe Doctrine where it's important to the United States to keep our adversaries out of the region. You can definitely make that argument. But I think just the threats of tariffs or the threats of either enforcing some sort of ban on use of the Panama Canal, that's something that's really important to American commerce. I'm not sure whether he can just single-handedly go in and take back the canal. That's a bit of a long shot. But I do think that the Panamanian president would be wise to at least listen to the argument and have a conversation. I don't think it's going to be as easy just flipping the switch.
All right. What you could call good police work and participation by citizens of Americans, the man who committed what you could call a heinous, depraved criminal act, lighting up a woman at the bus at the rail station, lighting her up, and she eventually died. What further comments have the police made about this arrest and this incident?
Yeah, it's still a bit new, and if the criminal was in fact an illegal migrant, that makes it a little bit more heinous, only because he should not have been in the country in the first place. And I mean, I don't think there's any point where we can eliminate crime completely, but we could surely start by eliminating people who have already broken the law by entering the country. So I think that's one of the big issues that is a bit unknown. All the details are coming through just in the last day, but it's a horrific crime, and I just can't imagine that, going through that. I've been on the F train. Subway violence in the U.S., I mean, in New York City specifically, is quite an issue. The district attorney in New York, Alvin Bragg, has famously reduced felonies to misdemeanors. Unless it's Donald Trump, then they elevate the misdemeanor to the felony, of course. But this is a real problem in New York, where illegal migrants have been released from felony crimes back on the street. And you saw that with the murder of Laken Riley at the University of Georgia, where the illegal migrant who killed her had been released from one of Alvin Bragg's indictments in New York. And I think the public is really running out of patience when we see illegal migrant crime. And so this is, I mean, obviously it's a really horrible story. It's difficult to even talk about, but I do think it raises the issue of illegal migrant crime, and it's just so preventable, and that's the real shame of it.
That's conjecture, Greg. That is if he is an illegal migrant, if I heard you correctly. Well, just briefly.
Yeah, I don't know that for sure.
Yeah, so it's conjecture there. Briefly, before we let you go, Luigi Mangione has pleaded not guilty to 2 charges, one federal, one state. The state life imprisonment if he's convicted, the federal death penalty if he's convicted. What are his lawyers saying? Just briefly. And did he show any remorse?
They'll of course plead not guilty. Maybe there's some kind of insanity defense. I don't know. But it points back to the cynicism that I mentioned at the beginning of our segment. In that the Biden Justice Department is saying we want a moratorium on executions, but on the other hand, they're filing a federal case for the death penalty against this assailant. So again, it's inconsistent and for the most part illegal.
All right, thank you so much, Greg Swenson, a U.S. Republican strategist from